Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're all having a good day. In today's episode, we have just updated to Minecraft 1.19.1, which only brings a couple of minor changes as far as gameplay is concerned. I'm not going to get into the whole chat reporting thing here, but in a single player world, we have a couple of things we can consider that this update now allows us to do. The first of which is over here on this island. We've got a couple of allays that we have been using to farm trees and a couple of other bits and pieces besides. They're lovely little creatures and I haven't really spent enough time with them since acquiring a few in my world. In fact, I have a bunch of them over really far away, over by a woodland mansion where I rescued a ton of them. And I don't really know how it's going to be easiest to bring them back. Obviously, via the nether seems like the most sensible option. We might end up doing that via the nether roof, since it'll be relatively safe up there, compared to digging out a tunnel or building a tunnel in the nether cavern, at least. But in the meantime, we now have another option, because 1.19.1 has given us the option to multiply these allays, to duplicate them, to clone them, to have them reproduce via mitosis, whatever kind of definition you want to use. I believe duplication is the term that they're using as far as Minecraft's communication about this. Either way, if we get the right combination of items and music, we can cause one of these allays to split into two, and then we have basically a second allay. Or a third allay, because we already have two over here. Now, coincidentally enough, the first item we'll need is right down here, near the area where I was farming trees with these little guys. Our Amethyst Geode farm is down here, and while I haven't harvested this for a little while, as you can tell, all of the crystals have grown, we should have a fair amount of shards in here, and we should just need one Amethyst shard per allay we want to duplicate, so that'll be nice and easy. And the other thing we'll need is going to be over here in the ender chest, which I have 2 of over here, and 3 in my inventory, so kind of spoiled for choice as far as where these things can be acquired from. Let's just leave 1 over here, and let's grab our Shulker Box of music discs. We've got a whole bunch of them. In fact, this box is completely full. We have a jukebox in here as well, and we can choose basically any of these records to play for the allays, and this should cause them to start dancing. Let's play the other side disc, because I haven't had a chance to do this in this world yet, as far as I can remember, and other side has been the outro music for this series from basically the beginning of 1.18. So I want to play this disc, and this should cause the allays to start dancing. Yeah, there you go. They do a little twirl every so often. They kind of wobble from side to side. That's actually pretty adorable. I like that a lot. But what this does is put them into a different state where they're not going to behave exactly the same way. If you give them an item, I believe they'll still go looking for that item. But if we give them an amethyst shard like this, heart particles appear and they immediately duplicate into a second allay, and those allays will start dancing as well. And now, in order to make sure the allays are our friends, at least we need to make sure they get some sort of item so that we can bring them back over here. So I'm going to give this one a pork chop as well before it decides to fly off completely, and we have a little allay party over here with all of our friends just gathering around this jukebox, swaying and spinning. It's just pretty adorable. Once the music stops, they should go back to their normal behaviors, and we'll probably end up leashing these ones to the fence post so they don't wander off too far. They will, of course, follow me if I decide to roam around a little bit. Those two will zip over to me with the firework and the pork chop, respectively. And the duplication mechanics for allays, I believe, work more or less the same way as breeding does with any other type of animal. If we put a record on again and give this another amethyst shard, the ones that have just been duplicated, or the ones that have formed from the duplication, should not be able to duplicate a second time for another 5 minutes or so. So there's a bit of a cooldown on that. Either way, I think these 2 new allays are perfect for a task that I've got over here. The wheat field over here has grown in its entirety, and I would like to do something about that. I need to harvest all of this wheat, and I'd like to have one allay collect the wheat while another allay collects the seeds. I'm going to do all of the farming, and hopefully the allays will be able to grab all of the items for me. So we'll harvest a couple of these so we get the wheat and we get the seeds. We'll need to take the firework off of this guy, and firework here can be our wheat collector. That is, if they feel like coming down. This is kind of the problem with using allays around such a large body of water, as they tend to fly off, and then I need to make sure I swim after them to give them the right sort of items. There we go. Back on dry land, we need to figure out where pork chop has wandered off to. Yeah, there you go, pork chop. All right, we'll give you the seeds, so I'll take that with one hand and I'll give you the seeds. There we go. And now all I should need to do is start farming some of this stuff, and then the allays will run around collecting all of the items for me and throwing them to me over here. So as I wander around, I'll find that the Allays end up following behind after me, collecting up all of the produce. And if they aren't successful in throwing me the items at the time, then they'll probably follow on behind, collect all of the stuff that they've dropped on the ground, and throw it at me at the next convenient moment. And that means I'm going to end up with a whole bunch of wheat and seeds in my inventory without any concerns about leaving items dropped on the ground. The perfect wheat harvesting strategy. And so I think today, now that we have the freedom to duplicate these Allays, now that we have the opportunity to get as many Allays as we want at short notice without having to worry about dragging them all back from the Woodland Mansion, and now that we don't have to worry too much about the scarcity of these Allays, I'm wondering if we can take them strip mining with us and gather a bunch of materials that way. Maybe use them to gather a few precious resources, maybe even use them to get the stone and andesite and all of the kind of stuff that we don't necessarily value out of the way, so that my inventory can be concentrated on gathering just the precious resources. I'm wondering, maybe we take a couple of Allays down to a beacon strip mine. In the meantime, I've managed to harvest this entire wheat field with the help of my Allays. There are no wheat items left anywhere on the ground, and I have a few stacks of it in my inventory, so that seems to have worked out pretty well. Good job, folks. We'll turn these into hay bales for now so that we can store them, but I do want to create a few more packed mud blocks, and so we're probably going to use the wheat for that a little later on. So let's take our jukebox, let's grab a few more amethyst crystals, and let's find a new location to go strip mining. I think we're going to do this relatively close to the base here, probably underneath one of these nearby hills, someplace where we're going to get a lot of stone, but we're not going to interfere with any of the other projects I have around my spawn area. But with the state my tools are in, we're not really going to be strip mining for very long, so I'm going to grab some leads, we're going to tie those Allays up to a fence post nearby, and then we're going to go and repair our tools quickly before we start our strip mine project. So now with my tools all fixed up and all 4 of my Allays hanging out over there, I actually had to track down the one with the seeds. He'd kind of wandered off and gone through a nether portal, so that guy I had to basically rescue from the nether. We're going to do this the smart way, I think. Usually the good way of doing things. And I'm going to grab a bunch of shulker boxes. I've been just leaving these around the places at different like builds and stuff because, of course, I have enough shulker boxes that I have the freedom to do that right now. But I think what we're going to do is set up a Shulker Box Loader over at our strip mine, and that's going to allow us to effectively just let the Allays load up these shulker boxes with whatever. We can bring them back to the system where the shulker box unloader is going to take care of sorting them all into their individual chests, and we're going to be left with a lot of precious resources hanging out in my inventory. These are the 5 items I expect to get a decent amount of from this strip mining expedition. Of course, natural stone and cobblestone are going to be pretty common depending on which pickaxe we're using, and of course we're going to be getting raw andesite, diorite, and granite, the 3 decorative stone types. We might also get a little bit of tuff, we might also end up silk touching the occasional ore block, but I'm fine carrying those in my inventory, and we can effectively scale up our Allay operation depending on how many other materials we run into. Like, if it turns out that there is a deep dark biome in the strip mine, unlikely around here because I loaded these chunks before 119, but if we need to assign an Allay to skulk blocks, for example, we can just grab a block from that environment, duplicate another Allay, and that will be that problem solved. And so I'm bringing a decent amount of amethyst shards, a jukebox, and our shulker box of music discs along with me, just so we can duplicate the Allays as we see fit, as we need them. And I actually think this biome over here is going to be a good place to start. We've got a little meadow biome up here, so that seems like a good location to dig, and potentially that will mean we end up digging in mountainous terrain, which means potential for emerald ore, my favorite. So I think we'll maybe start over there. I didn't realize that that section over there is actually burning down. That's just a little forest fire been started by a lava lake over there, it looks like, yeah. But I want to start this mining project relatively close to my spawn area. Like I said, I don't think there's going to be any risk of deep dark biomes being down here, and I have, on occasion in previous strip mines, run into deep dark biomes and triggered a couple of shriekers in the middle of a mining time-lapse, which was a little bit awkward, but didn't end up spawning the warden either way, so no harm done. Hey look, we got some emerald ore on the way down. How delightful. We are using the Silk Touch pickaxe, so let's grab that. I don't think there'll be any more around there. They're typically in veins of only 1 or 2. You can get more expansive veins, but you typically get them higher up in the world. And so all we really going to do is dig down until we hit deep slate, and that's a pretty sure sign that we don't want to dig any further down than that because, of course, we can't insta-mine deep slate. I'm still kind of on the fence about whether or not strip mining at a stone level is worth it for stuff like diamonds and redstone. You're always going to get more diamonds if you dig further down, but I do think it's nice to get a good cross-section of all of the different minerals, and the test here is not necessarily how many resources we can gather, but it's how helpful the Allays are with this whole project. But to really see how helpful they are, I probably want to start this strip mine without them. We want to make sure we have the beacon set up, and I need to dig out a little bit of space so that we can create a Shulker Box Loader for the Allays to fill up with all of these extra building blocks. There we go, there's our deep slate layer. We should be around Y8 right now, this right here, or Y6. Okay, so let's dig into the walls a little bit just to make sure that, yeah, we need to be up here on the top level of where deep slate is going to generate. And so that does actually seem to be Y8. The highest level of deep slate generation I found is around here, and yep, that's at Y8. So our beacon needs to go in there. We're going to build up the beacon pyramid with Y8 as our floor level, and from there we should be able to dig out the area around us to create a bit more space for our Allay infrastructure. So with the floor space all dug out, we can create our beacon, and this should now be haste 2 capable. That should be a full beacon. Let's break down one of these, throw an iron ingot in there, and yep, we get haste 2, perfect. I've actually got to drop off a few of the materials that I got whilst I was mining my way down here and digging this space out. We already have quite a bit of stone. That's one shulker box half full already. And I keep hearing mob noises in the distance, so there is every chance that we are somewhere near a larger cave, and I want to make sure that we don't end up losing our Allays in a cave like that. So yeah, looks like we'll need to make sure this area is either nicely walled off or just incorporated into our strip mine in general. Oh gosh. It turns out I hadn't done a great deal of caving around here, but look, there's a geode right here. That would be a really great supply of more amethyst shards if for some reason we needed some more Allays down here. We could even use the Allays to harvest the material from the geode if we wanted to do that as part of this adventure. But I think maybe for now we'll block off this side of the strip mine, and until we can make that a little safer, we'll dig in the opposite directions. Alright, I've dug out a nice little area. This should be enough room for us to build our Shulker Box Loader, and my inventory is already starting to fill up with all of these other resources. So I think that's going to be a good point to build our Shulker Box Loader, get the Allays down here, and see what they can do. So in the process of putting this together, I realized that the Shulker Box Loaders that we've used elsewhere in the series probably aren't going to work out for this design, primarily because those ones were unloaded manually. You swap the shulker box manually because there were too many different items going into the box at once for it to actually fill up. So the same is probably going to be the case down here. Let's say, for example, our Allays collect, a bunch of stacks of stone, a bunch of stacks of the decorative stone types, the diorite, the andesite, and whatnot, but I've got one Allay collecting dirt, and we don't reach a full stack of dirt in one of these dirt patches. Well, that's not going to fill up the full space in the shulker box, which means that the shulker box is never going to completely fill up. And that means we can't rely on the full signal strength to be output by the comparator because it's detecting the contents of a shulker box, which will not be 100% full. So enter the side input comparator, and what we're going to do is replace this redstone block with something like a Lectern that can output a variable redstone signal. We'll experiment with this a little bit, but I think a signal of 13 or 14 from a 15-page book in the Lectern will probably be enough to make sure that the shulker box is mostly full, but not completely full by the time the system ejects it. And that way we'll end up with mostly full shulker boxes going into this hopper, and from there actually going into a barrel, which I brought down with me on my last return trip. There we go, we can pop that in there. I might actually reorient that and have the barrel down here underneath the piston, because this is a sticky piston that's going to push this observer around. We'll get to that in a second. But then the barrel can tuck underneath that without needing to have an air block above it. So right here we have a dispenser full of empty shulker boxes, and let's use this one here as our example shulker box. This one has all of the materials that I've gathered since I've been down here, give or take, and it's looking mostly full. So once this comparator outputs a signal strength that suggests that this box is mostly full, it's going to match or exceed the side input comparator, which means this comparator is going to output to the piston. I'll simulate what happens by removing the redstone blocks so that we end up cutting the signal from this side, because that should now activate this piston. The observer will get pushed up very briefly, sending a redstone pulse to this block. That will travel through the repeater into this redstone dust and activate that piston, which will push that shulker box over. When the shulker box is pushed, it gets pushed on top top of this comparator, which has a hopper below it. The hopper transfers the shulker box into this chest down here, and we can pull it out, mostly full of resources. Then when the observer retracts, it'll power this block temporarily, which will just power this dispenser, and that will dispense a fresh new shulker box right there. We can fill this dispenser full of empty shulker boxes if we think we're going to bring home that much resources. And now on this side, this is where a hopper is going to be directed into the shulker box that's positioned there, and we're going to have a hopper minecart on top of that with a note block pushed down on top of it in much the same way as we had with our tree farming setup. By removing the rail the hopper minecart is sat on and then pushing this note block down into it with a piston, that note block will be where the Allays come back to throw their items. We'll set up a secondary redstone clock to just have this ding continuously, and that should encourage the Allays to come over here and drop off their stuff, as long as we're within a certain radius of the note block. And that's where I think we'll need to keep returning to this central area, which I would do anyway, probably to drop off any resources that I happen to pick up along the way. And that's when the Allays should be prompted to drop their stuff off into here. So we're going to create a very simple redstone clock for that, probably just powered by a few repeaters and redstone dust. We'll need to leave a space there to put the lectern, because I'll come back with that in just a second, but in the meantime we should just be able to create a simple redstone clock like this. We'll power that with a single redstone pulse, and that will just ring the note block every so often and shouldn't affect any of the other components in the circuit, because the signal is traveling through this solid block. It's not locking the hopper, it's not affecting any of these components, it's not doing anything with our piston setup that's giving us more shulker boxes, and we can effectively block off all of this stuff so that the Allays don't get stuck down here by these hoppers if they happen to fly in or anything like that. It's a pretty smooth system. I think it should work out. So I'm going to bring a lectern down here, I'm going to bring a book down here, I'm going to bring the Allays down here, and finally we can start strip mining. To set up the lectern here, all we need to do is get a book and quill, which is a book crafted together with some feathers and some ink. We need to create 15 pages. Just turn to page 15, leave a space, hit done. And then once you put this in the lectern, you'll have a book with 15 pages. They don't have to have anything in particular on them, but since that space registers as a character, there is something on page 15, so the other 14 pages need to exist as well. We're going to turn this to page 14 or 13 of 15, just so that we have a 14 or 13 detected by this comparator as our output signal. And then if we feed the system a shulker box which is more than 14/15ths of the way full, the signal is going to match or exceed the comparator and it's going to eject it into the hopper. So our music disc shulker box is now down here in the barrel, ready to be collected, and a new shulker box has made its way into the system. I'm going to top this up with one more because I emptied the other shulker box while I was over at my storage system, and we are hot to trot here. I'm going to put a trapdoor right there. That shouldn't really affect the system in any way. It just means that the Allays won't end up bumbling down into this hole and staying there, and it means we can access that barrel whenever we want to. I'm going to leave a fence post down here, and we're going to go and get 2 of our Allays, with the plan of duplicating them once they're down here, so that we have a team of Allays that's just working here at this strip mine. Now, of these 4, 2 of them are already holding items. I don't really want to do anything with the seeds and wheat after this, so we're going to tie seeds and wheaty back up over here, and we're going to let the other 2 come with us to the mine. Obviously, this part's going to be a little bit slower because we do have to drag the Allays over here manually. Honestly, it's kind of easier to do it this way than any other way. Flying is going to detach the leads pretty quickly, and it's not all that far. That's really why I built this strip mine relatively close to spawn. In fact, I might give both of our Allays here spruce logs and see how easy it is for them to follow me, because if I sprint over in this direction, I think they should be able to follow me pretty easily. Yeah, they're actually not doing too badly. I'm kind of impressed by that, to be honest. And they should make their way up here to the meadow, although vertical travel is not something I've really tested. We've got one of them up here. Where's the other one? Oh, yeah, nope, they made it. They made it. Fantastic. They were just climbing the hill by a kind of awkward direction. And now, before the mobs get out here, not that they're going to be a danger to the Allays, but more of a danger to me, I'm going to try slowly gliding down the hole here and see if the Allays will follow me that way. I think at least one of them is. I think the lead is still attached. And since they can breed individually, since you don't need 2 Allays in order to get more Allays, honestly, just getting 1 down here would be a good start. But I think 2 is going to make this thing twice as fast, so we might as well give that a try. Yeah, looks like we only got 1 down here in the end. Oh, no, and the other one has just followed me, so in the end, it didn't seem like we needed the leads at all. Once again, I am underestimating these little guys, but either way, we should be able to load up our jukebox here and play a tune, give them both an amethyst shard, and then we'll have 4 Allays down here. There we go, there's 1 more, and a 4th. Fantastic. Well, I'm so happy that we can duplicate these now, because that is going to make this whole operation a lot easier. Except for when this one decides to fly his way back up to the surface. Let's see if we can bring him back down. Well, he got back up here, but I need him to come on down to the mines, because it's not safe for me out here, much less him. So let's give him a spider eye. And if we fly down here nice and slowly, I'm hoping that the Allay's gonna follow me. There we go. Thanks for the spider eye, buddy. Well, he sure did take his time, but he ended up getting back down here. And I think one of the things we can do to resolve that problem is quickly craft up a trapdoor and have a transparent block for the beacon beam to go through. That way the Allays won't be able to escape back up the shaft that we've dug for the beacon. And finally, we can get our spider eye gathering friend hooked up over here and listening to the music. So here's the plan. We're going to take the items off of each of these so that they are empty-handed for now. And frankly, I'm just going to throw all of the mob drops and stuff from my inventory in the corner here because I don't really need those right now. But we're going to grab a bit of each material from the environment here. We've got some stone, we've got some dirt, we naturally have a lot of diorite around here. There's some andesite right there. That's 4 to start off with. And if we run into any more materials, we'll be able to duplicate a few more Allays. We're going to give this guy the stone. We're going to give this one the andesite. We're going to give diorite to this guy, and the final one will get the dirt block. I'm also going to quickly craft a couple of slabs so that we can slab off these components just to make sure that the Allays don't fly down into there. They should be able to detect this note block. Yep, that signal went out to all of them, so they should now know that note block is the one to drop stuff off to, but we need to refresh that every so often, hence the redstone clock here. Let's grab one piece of cobblestone here. We'll make a couple of sticks, make a lever, and that lever is going to start the redstone clock that will let this note block ring continuously. And that's now telling each of these Allays what they should be collecting and where they should be dropping it off. Now, we can unleash all of them, making sure we collect the leads back up as we go. And I'm going to fill my inventory up with junk items for now. Just one of every item dragged out into all of the available slots. And now, as I harvest materials from my surroundings, the Allays should come through, pick it all up, and deposit it over there at the note block. We'll get some dirt from over here, and the dirt collecting Allay will do the same thing. Oh, we've got some emerald ore in there. Perfect. So now, whenever we encounter anything that I want to actually gather, I'm going to silk touch that block. It's going to replace one of the blocks in my inventory, and that way I don't pick up any of the blocks that the Allays are supposed to be collecting. And so far, it's looking like the system is working pretty well. We are occasionally getting stone blocks left on top of these blocks here, so maybe I'll end up just creating a couple of blocks around the outside here so that they're a bit more precise with where they drop stuff off. But if they drop stuff nearby, they just pick it up again and try again. So a lot of those supplies are ending up eventually getting tossed into the hopper minecart. And if we take a look down here, I won't be able to detect it right now, obviously, but if I can reposition this shulker box, I can open it that way, and we'll see that a bunch of material has already started to be collected down there. Now, this little guy needs to move out of the way so that I can block this off, and we're ready to start doing a little bit more mining. The gold ore here I can silk touch, and that will go in my inventory in place of any other wood blocks that I have in there. And every time we collect an ore block, like redstone for example, that's going to replace one of these. I can toss the stone out, and we can just stack the spruce logs up in one corner. Now, a couple of the Allays are pretty idle right now because we haven't encountered a large enough patch of diorite or andesite, but I think once we end up breaking through these, we'll find them eventually. We could just swap it around so one of the diorite guys is gathering stone instead, considering that one Allay gathering the majority of the material in here is going to make a little bit too much work for that one. But of course, if we want to, we could always disable this note block clock so that the Allays aren't listening to that anymore. We'll grab the redstone right here. We could play another record in the jukebox and duplicate a couple more Allays. And this one seems like a bit of a somber song for them to be dancing to, but there we go. We can feed that one, and as you'll see, it doesn't duplicate the item it's holding, it just duplicates the mob itself. Let's get one more out of this dirt guy. There we go. So happy that we can do this now. Let's restart our note block clock, and let's give those two Allays some stone. This guy here can have some stone, and where was our sixth one? There we go. Fantastic. So now 3 of them should all be working on stone collection, while the decorative stone types and dirt are gathered by other ones. And now we should just be able to go ham strip mining down here while we wait for the Allays to collect everything up, and hopefully our Shulker Box Loader should be able to fill up on stone nice and easily. And this is already the neatest strip mine I've ever done, because they're just collecting all of the stuff for me. This is great. Although I might still need to make a few more torches, because we got to make sure this area stays lit up. Right, folks, I'm going to do some strip mining. We might get one more Allay on the go if we find some granite, which I haven't encountered yet, but I'm sure there'll be some down here. But in the meantime, me and these Allays have got a lot of mining to do. Okay, so I've now been mining for, I want to say, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. I've cleared out this sort of area, and I've been taking it pretty steadily because I've been observing what the Allays are doing, and for the most part, they are doing very, very well. They're coming through here, picking up the stone just because I'm nearby, and then they've heard the note block recently enough that once they fill up, they do still head back to the note block instead of trying to throw stuff to the player. So that's working out pretty well. The bottleneck is not the Allays' behavior themselves, it's how fast the hopper underneath can transfer items into the Shulker box. And the problem is this hopper minecart is getting full up. They're throwing all of these items onto the surface, and then they're not really going anywhere, which means the Allays get hung up around here, throwing all of these items onto the note block, and then throwing them again once they pick them up because they haven't been collected by the hopper minecart yet. So that's really the bottleneck, and at that point, we just need to increase the amount of hopper minecarts we have feeding into the system. We maybe need to increase the amount of angles that we can feed into the Shulker box from, maybe have a hopper on the top here and have this dispenser pushing Shulker boxes into place from the side or something like that, but that could really increase the efficiency of the system. And I did feed in one extra hopper on the side here, which as you can see is now filled up with the excess stone that they're throwing in this direction, but really it just means keeping the item entities out of their field of view. This guy is collecting up all of the andesite. There's a little bit more over here in the corner, but for the most part we haven't seen any of the stone around here despawn, and that has shown in the fact that the system has now ejected 2 pretty much full Shulker boxes. This one has 22 stacks extra, so that's probably nearly full. There's just going to be a couple of stacks of just 1 or 2 of granite or stone or something like that. And this one has 21 stacks, which is probably mostly stone from around this area. But our third Shulker box is in there, and that's got to be filling up pretty well at this point too. And in terms of what I've been able to collect resource-wise, this is what my inventory looks like right now. We've got all of the ore blocks, we've got some granite, which I've honestly been using to patch up some of these areas because there are caves around the outside, and I don't want my Allays wandering off into the cave system and getting lost. We got a bit of the smooth basalt, calcite, and amethyst from over here on this geode. We managed to uncover a couple of budding blocks that I definitely didn't want to break with haste, but the rest of this stuff in here is guaranteed to be all of the precious materials, and we've been adding them as we go. We found 6 stone diamond ore, which I'm pretty happy with, a couple of emerald ore, of course, and a bunch of the other stuff as well. So that's a pretty proven methodology. As long as we leave time for all of these resources to drain away from the hopper and the hopper minecart, we should hopefully be able to expand this strip mine even further, and the Allays will follow along quite successfully. Aside from improvements to the Shulker box loading system, there are a couple of other things that I would recommend about this. The first being trying to find an area of solid stone to start a strip mine like this, because as you can see, the whole back of the strip mine here is the area that opens out into a cave, and I'm not really comfortable mining out that area, so I'm left with a bunch of material over here which we could be gathering if not for the fact that it risks potentially losing the Allays in a cave system. So finding a really big solid patch of stone, scouting the location a little bit first just to make sure that your strip mine is viable in all directions could prove a worthwhile exercise if you're planning on doing this with Allays yourself. The other thing, of course, is making sure you've got enough Allays to do each job, and now that we can duplicate them, it seems likely that you'll have enough. We've got gravel here that I need to assign to a different Allay, and I might take one of these guys off of stone duty and give him some gravel instead. But I really do recommend having multiple Allays on the stone gathering task because it does seem to make this process quicker, although too many of them is likely to complicate matters even further because they'll be picking up the stone that the other Allays have thrown, and it starts to become just a cluster of them around here all throwing the same stone into the same box. But if we take the stone off of this guy and give him gravel instead, then he should be able to nip over here and pick up any gravel that we throw on the ground from our mining, and we can continue digging out this gravel patch here. And I think I'll probably switch over to cobblestone so that I can give my silk touch pickaxe a break and give the fortune pickaxe a run for its money, but I think the Allays should be able to keep up. The only thing that doesn't keep up right now is the item collection system. We do have some caves opening out around here as well, so yeah, once again, if we can find a more solid patch of stone, I would gladly do this again. I think it's been a pretty successful experiment. But that is where we're going to end this experiment for today, folks, and I want to thank you for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. Don't forget to leave a like on this episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care, bye for now.